I've started recording.
Oh no, I'm not ready.
Let me know you're ready, I'll fade out.
I mean, I feel like one day we'll have some sort of intro, like, sound, maybe. Not even a full... I mean, now that THX is dead, we could steal that.
Maybe you could. I could do a little snazzy be kind of cool.
Or like the Home Depot theme song. Ask them for a license.
This.
And while we are removing them from the frame, I do want to shout out Audio-Technica for the fantastic work that they do in audio engineering.
And for sponsoring us 3 podcasts from now, preemptively.
That's ambitious.
Yeah, that's my goal. So have we faded in? All right. Well, welcome to Cognitive Cul-De-Sac. I am your host, James.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, I am a Sith aficionado. I have 3 cats, and I don't know how to swim.
I mean, once again, you're 0 for 3.
One of these days, I'll get one right.
And one of these days, somebody will know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I have, here the usual axioms. Well, not, usual for what they are, but usual that we have them.
Right. And this time, I have not prepared at all. And James has prepared a lot, so we're going to see how that goes this time.
I mean, a lot's a strong word. It's relatively modest as far as...
your standards go?
Well, more tangible output, more cognitive output, and less tangible output.
Just the way I like it.
And so I guess this, 3 things.
Okay.
1, time isn't felt in seconds. Calendars corrupt history, and there is an afterlife.
So, like last time, am I just refuting one, and then we'll go from there?
Well, I'm coming to you with some things that I have found to be true through radically disorganized observation.
Right.
And with that in mind, which one of those just evoked the most?
The most passion within me? I'm a big fan of calendars. I don't know if you knew that about me.
And how do you feel about them corrupting history?
I'm not happy about it. And I feel very strongly about it. I also have no idea what it means.
Well,
so would you like to enlighten me?
Well, at some point, history was prehistory.
Right.
And before that, we don't really bother with calendars. I don't know if you've heard of Cul-De-Sac, this YouTube channel that makes things. They make a decent amount of money selling a calendar that they put 1 in front of. So the year is 12,020.
Okay.
And that's to mark the beginning of the Holocene era, which is like, humans kind of really start to just civilize on a regular basis.
Yeah. We're just doing civilized stuff. We're making calendars, probably.
And it's generally today regarded as a bad idea.
Really?
Well,
and a lot of people are unhappy about it.
I mean, currently,
except calendar makers, they're pretty pumped about it.
Right. So the idea here is that oral history is unchartable and therefore not necessarily represented in the way people think about and do things.
So oral history is unchartable, except via oral history.
Right.
Okay.
Which is not included in calendars, meaning that they exclude oral history and corrupt our understanding of history.
Okay, so do you have like an example of this?
No.
No. Why would we need one? Of course not.
I think, what oral history have you heard?
The history of orthodontics is my favorite type of oral history.
What have you been told?
I don't know. Like specifically about oral history. So when I think of oral history, I
just
think
what
of
is
like
the history you've
shaman telling stories about ancient gods and then how that like relates to modern day. I mean, if we're talking about like Holocene era humans, early Holocene era humans, that's what I think of in terms of oral history. Because now oral history exists, but it's superseded by calendaric history, if that's a word. Is that a word, Wes? Calendaric? Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank
We'll
God for
get back
Wes.
to that.
So whose calendar do you operate on?
Ever since I became self-employed, I really don't operate on a calendar. I operate based on upcoming deadlines, so I guess the Gregorian calendar. But yeah, the Julian calendar is pretty dope too, though. Not bad.
Is that the one that's more straight up about like Norse gods and Julians?
I have no idea. All I know about the Julian calendar is that like the big thing that came up recently about it was like the 2012 Mayan prediction of the apocalypse was using the Julian calendar, or what we would call the Julian calendar. And if you convert that 2020 or 2012 date into the Gregorian calendar, it actually adds like 7.5 years and puts us into 2020.
Oof.
Yeah.
There is this Hulu show, Last Man on Earth.
Okay.
This SNL guy, Will Forte, is the last man on Earth after a virus in the year 2020 wipes out literally everybody else.
When did they make that movie?
It started in 2016, I think.
Shit. Hashtag pandemic, bro.
Yeah.
Damn.
So
Confirmed.
that brings me actually to another point, because with calendars and like this demand for a lot of evidence that doesn't necessarily exist, I think the people of today are generally more educated in conspiracy than history.
Educated is a strong word when it comes to conspiracy, I think. Knowledgeable of rhetoric, I think, is more accurate.
Sure. What is education if not knowledge of the specific rhetoric of, the sciences or art, math?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, I agree. I mean, education is literally just download of information that you believe is true and hopefully can verify independently, but not always. I mean, how can you independently verify things from history? Sometimes you can, because there's written documentation. You can go into the Vatican archives and open up a scroll, but quite often it's like, I don't know. What did happen 200 years ago? Did like Da Vinci was just some guy I've heard about and like seen his art, but how do you independently verify that he exists unless you have the documents in front of you? You have to take it on trust at some point.
Well, it's a matter of taking it from somebody, and taking it anonymously seems like the worst possible idea.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. Like literally the whole idea of QAnon really freaks me out, because it's like there's no credentials, literally anybody. But that's one of the reasons that people think Wikipedia is more trustworthy, right? Because
Absolutely.
Anybody can go on there and write anything. You just have to make sure that you have some sort of authoritative governing committee that, I mean, they're not actually anonymous, right? Like the contributors to Wikipedia, they are individuals that have like track records with Wikipedia. You don't like really know them yourself.
And so as an informational institution, Wikipedia has the checks and balances that allow for them to run an anti-democratic system.
Anti-democratic?
Mm-hmm.
How so?
Well, I mean, not anybody can just go up there and post something. There's like people who have the authority to take it down.
It's just verified democracy, because you can go on there and change it. And then if your credentials aren't good enough, they fucking kill you. They will come and kill you at night.
So you mentioned another thing, and this is kind of relevant to the democracy cul-de-sac. I think there were two things that were invented around the same time that had pretty different effects on the people that used them.
Okay.
One was the scroll,
Mm-hmm.
and the other's the amphitheater.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? That's like Greece, and then kind of like the Mesopotamia area of, human history and stuff.
The Mesopotamians were amphitheaters. The Greeks were scrolls.
Other way. So
Really?
like the early Judeo tribes.
Mesopotamians had scrolls? I thought they were all like stonework.
Well,
Wes?
it was stonework, but
Mesopotamians invent scrolls?
that was years and years before. Like papyrus was invented on the Nile with the Egyptians,
Right.
And I mean, from there, like scrolls were used by.
Right. And the Mesopotamians were After that?
Think more the Jewish.
Okay.
And the Jewish and the Greeks had two pretty different things in the scroll and the amphitheater.
Okay.
And one of those is an oral history, and one of those is a written history.
Okay. The Greeks are oral, or they're...
Yeah, they, instead of like writing things down, putting things to a calendar, they assign the stories and things of the time, the culture, the history, to a bunch of fictional characters that like mess around with each other and get up to, you know,
hijinks.
Stories that have morals.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the point you're trying to make here?
Well, the calendars corrupt history.
The calendars corrupt history.
Yeah.
They
And
can
the
be
scroll,
if they're written improperly. I mean, so what if you had an uncorruptible source writing the history on the calendars?
well, I mean, any given religion might argue that that's like God or karma keeping its own tally.
Right. I mean, the reality is that we see victors write history and rewrite them and change them and bury them. So I would agree with you, I have to say. I think that calendars can probably be a pretty good way of messing up things and then being used as like this verifiable source, right, to justify things like beliefs and proclamations. And then turns out, oh, that shit was a lie.
I mean, it also, I think, leads us to this next axiom of there absolutely being an afterlife.
There is absolutely an afterlife.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So why do you think there's absolutely an afterlife?
Well, why don't you? I mean, isn't it obvious?
I think that it's obvious that there's not.
Why?
Because there is no evidence to suggest that
Because you've been told some written history that doesn't include anything written about things that couldn't be written about.
Right, but even today there are people doing experiments on the afterlife and they have dubious conclusions. The closest thing I've ever heard in terms of evidence for an afterlife beyond just like political advisors like telling you what to do and how to buy your way into it is near-death experiences, NDEs. These things are freaking crazy. So like there's actually a clinic in Phoenix that specializes in deep brain tumor removal, and they do this by killing you, bringing you down to hypothermic temperatures. You're dead for a little while. They like recirculate your blood still, I guess, or something like that. And then they'll remove the tumor and then bring you back to life. And the NDEs that come out of there are really interesting. So they're all different. Like some people see like the Buddha. Some people like just float around the room and like hear the conversation. They can recite it afterwards. Some will like go see a loved one, and some people straight up see Jesus, like white Jesus. And it's weird.
So they see some version of what they want to.
Exactly. That seems to be the common thread here. Is they're not all like, oh my God, there was like, a specific gate that was made of pearls. There was a big dude who was like 30 feet tall and he had a big beard and he like asked me questions. So there's no like common thematic thread. It's all the commonality is that they all see what they want to see.
So I'll go from here to a place where I have some experience with oral history. Did some humanitarian engineering work in Kenya among the Maasai people who have this pastoralist, like cattle herding nomadic tradition that goes back like tens of thousands of years. Okay. Which was probably not the way to say that, but like 70,000 years. I just don't want to, say something that Wes can very easily fact check. And
you want to paint with broad strokes.
Right.
Smart.
And so, I mean, they're from the Rift Valley, which is where like the oldest like hominid skeletons are, found. Okay. And their language has like a non-binary like word set for life and death. Okay. Like it's not a like duality.
It's like Eskimos and snow. They have like 200 different words for it.
So in this, I mean, it's only 3, but it's like there's a word for like alive. There's a word for like deceased, but there are people alive still that have met you. Okay. And then once all of those people also die, you like are relegated to this like dead zone. Mm-hmm.
Like long forgotten ancient history. Pharaohs aren't dead. They're like ultra dead.
And so while you're dead, but not dead, is that not you existing in some sort of afterlife?
It's an echo of you, for sure, in people's memories. And what are memories but neuroelectric phenomena. So yeah, it's like a electrochemical echo of your actions while you were here.
Which is that not some form of like existence?
I don't experience it. If I could, I'd experience it in your brain right now, right? While I'm still here, because the same phenomenon is occurring.
Are you not experiencing my brain right now?
No. If I could see myself through your eyes, I would, because I know how good looking I am. Everybody says it. Everybody's thinking it.
Okay, so that brings me to actually there's another character I wanted to bring up as we were talking about you and the geniuses like you.
Oh,
so Albert Einstein,
that.
Right?
Yeah.
The one, mediocre at best.
Yeah, he had some.
I mean,
ideas,
he's no John von Neumann, am I right?
Oh yeah, big fan of von Neumann. Mm-hmm.
But he talks a lot about like time, right?
Yes. And space.
So time, space. There's like 2 of 4 dimensions that we regularly interact with.
No, that's 4 dimensions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time and space are 2 of them, right? And then there's
space is 3 of them. Time is 1.
Right, and then there's like flat, and then there's line.
Yeah, 2-dimensional, then 1-dimensional. So I guess yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then so there's actually been this story written by one of Einstein's students.
Okay.
That called Flatland.
Got it.
And the protagonist is a square.
Okay.
And you're a square. Got him.
That was the whole lead up to a fatty burn.
Yeah, and that's been cognitive cul-de-sac. Thank you very much, everybody.
God damn, you got me.
No, so he's a square, and all of a sudden one day a sphere appears, like coming in hot, like the ghost of Christmas past, and he's like, "Yo, just so you know, square, there's a land of 3 dimensions, and things are crazy." And the square, being 2-dimensional, only sees the sphere as a circle, because 2 dimensions of a sphere is a circle.
Exactly, it's a projection.
Will always be a circle.
Exactly.
And he's like, "I don't know, man, that sounds like kind of fake news." And, shenanigans ensue. At some point, he ends up on the run from the government of polygons.
Really?
And
wow.
The sphere helps him escape into line land.
Ooh.
And
he becomes a god.
Well, he's telling everybody, he's like, "Oh, I'm actually a square, right? Like, I'm a line in, 2 directions." And everyone's like, "Nah, dude, that's fake news." And they couldn't even comprehend, right?
Exactly.
And there's even a point land. And points are just entire solipsists, which I'm not entirely sure what that means, but you probably have an understanding.
Yeah, I mean, they have no way to comprehend higher dimensions at all, and or one another. A point can't comprehend another point in 1-dimensional space, right? So
their entire universe is within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just completely like, if they hear a thought, this is what the sphere was saying, like, you can say something, Mr. Square, to that point, but he's just going to hear it as his own thought, like it's going to be from him. So, it sounds pretty miserable, that solipsism.
Yeah.
But they even go up to the 3rd dimension. This is Spaceland.
Okay.
And in Spaceland, the square begins to think, "Wow, Mr. Sphere, I bet there's even like another land beyond this one."
Right.
And the sphere's like, "Nah, bro, that's dumb."
Yeah.
And like the sphere's, of course,
what a closed-minded sphere.
Not omniscient.
I don't like the sphere at all.
And I mean, at this point, we're up to like a lot of dimensions technically, right? Or at least we think, with string shenanigans.
Yeah, string theory brings it up to 11 micro pocket dimensions.
Is that how many dimensions you'd like the Novotrope to spin in?
Yes, if we can get that going in 11-dimensional space, I think we'll be onto something.
All right. Well, until then, back to Einstein.
Right.
He was really good at let me conclude Flatland by saying that Square then goes back and they imprison him and execute him.
Oh, yeah.
Because, he's just spreading rumors about, a higher level of consciousness and existence. The
Church of Sphere couldn't have him thinking in broad terms like that.
And so that guy, probably wrote that after taking an Einstein lecture and then a cocktail of other, somethings, probably.
Yeah, something available back then.
Right. Maybe opium?
Mercury, opium, and cocaine. It's just a nice little mixture.
What do you call that?
A Heisenberg.
Okay, so Einstein's like, around doing things. He actually does 3 big things when he's like a teenager, right? It's like 1905-ish summer. He's like got an internship with like his dad's friend's office in Switzerland as a patent attorney.
Okay.
And he spends a lot of time just chilling and writes in his spare time like 3 papers that go on to be like super fundamental to all physics of the century following. And he talks a lot about this time as like a relatively malleable thing.
Right.
And this understanding that we have of mechanical time is completely worthless to us.
Mechanical time meaning what? Pre-Einstein time?
Well, no, I think Einstein, put some words to it, but mechanical time in general is, what calendars are made of and corrupt history.
With increments. So that's what you're referring to, is incremented time as opposed to non-incremented time.
Experience time, felt time.
Right.
Time isn't felt in seconds.
No, it isn't.
It's
you
like,
can experience seconds worth of time, but it is a continuum.
But the seconds that you're, spending staring at like the face of your watch take longer than the seconds that fly when you're having fun.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, I have no idea how many minutes we are into this.
Yeah.
Because it's all just,
It's just flying by at
body
a prodigious
time
rate.
is really what governs us on like every level. And most watches are probably worn ornamentally.
Right. Well, time was developed for industry to be more efficient and accountable and reliable, right? So, time obviously existed before the Industrial Revolution, but people didn't have watches on their wrists as much, I guarantee you that.
So I don't think...
Especially since the fact that the Industrial Revolution allowed for mass manufacture of watches.
So when do you think we discovered incremental time?
That is a good question. Who quantified the second? I think it's like a second is defined as some amount of vibrations of a cesium atom. It's like 32 million vibrations of a cesium atom or something.
So you think it was when we discovered the cesium atom that we understood what an incremental time was?
We had to be measuring time before the atomic age, right?
The Gregorian calendar certainly implies so.
Right, exactly.
I think moons were where we started, kind of.
Yeah, we started measuring time when we started becoming an agricultural society because it allowed us to more efficiently farm.
So that's also roughly where this Holocene calendar starts.
Okay.
With that moment.
Cool.
That you discover mechanical time, start putting things into calendars, and start writing history. And more or less discounting the oral history that you kind of understood in your existence, right? Like the actions that you took to hunt in specific places, gather elsewhere, know where it was going to rain next, month to get some good grass for your cows or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the Holocene era.
I'm a big fan.
So.
I think that, we probably do measure time subjectively, not in seconds.
Well, and why do you think obviously...
what is time a function of?
Well, also, doesn't matter where the zero is, like what we're counting from.
We're constantly resetting the zero, right? If I'm going to go start working out, I'm starting a timer. Other than that, though, it's from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, you're experiencing this big clock that resets every morning.
So, also in Kenya, they're like 0 o'clock. They use 24-hour time, and 0 is 6 a.m. to us. So they're like noon is 6 a.m. or, just 0600. And, in the middle of the night, you're at like 18.
That's totally crazy.
Is it
going
though?
To Kenya now.
You said it doesn't matter where the zero's put. You have the audacity to turn on a 0 when you go to the gym.
Yeah.
Isn't that dangerous? You could do something.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You might be threatening dimensions that you can't even comprehend.
That's deep. Like the 11th dimension, specifically. Right?
God knows what you're
Those poor
ramifications are.
Yeah.
Just bulldozing your way through life, setting zeros all the time, starting from scratch.
Yeah. It's solipsistic of me, honestly. Yeah.
So, do calendars promote solipsism? Is that what we're...
Do calendars promote solipsism? I don't know. I'm still confused as to how all of the time stuff is supposed to tie into the afterlife. That afterlife is proved. You still haven't given me your conjecture on that.
Well, the echo idea that we got to, I think, is all I'm like really... That's all the evidence I need of an afterlife. If there are people that will still be like aware of my existence and talking about it, then I want that to be as positive an experience as possible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. It's so they say you die when you take your last breath, and you die a second time when the
last person that saw you, or like, you know,
or your name is spoken for the last time.
Yeah.
So like Caesar still hasn't died then, right? Ramses still hasn't died his second death, but he's still like a dead guy, you know. His bones were probably burnt in European trains in the 1800s, like every other mummy.
And that's what makes people immortal, right? Like immortal beings, I'd say, if we go back to the OG oral history, or maybe not the OG, but like the one conducted in an amphitheater.
Yeah.
The like Zeus, Poseidon, like those deities will live longer because they're fictitious.
So is it possible that oral history only reigned because they didn't have advanced enough technology to more efficiently conduct a non-oral history? I mean, papyrus and all of the scrolls were like hand copied. And in Greece, I don't even know if they had scrolls in Greece, right?
But
Definitely did. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, probably at some point. But I think like maybe the early like Mycenaean or whatever that like pre-Greek is, maybe... I'm not sure what the timeline is there. Okay. I don't subscribe to calendars, bro.
Right, I know. It's very clear at this point.
I mean, neither do you, though.
I'm on the fence still.
You're ruled by body time and oral history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, is it possible, though, that like these ancient Mayans were only conducting oral history because it took so much effort to transcribe those stories that they had to pare them down and boil them down so much so that the recorded version of it was literally just like a picture of a giant Quetzalcoatl and like 3 virgins, a volcano, and some corn. And then they're like, they'll know what we mean. You know, now we're like, yo, they were nuts. But like that could have just been like the highly reduced version of some like crazy oral story that everybody knew. They were like, everybody will always know this story. Yeah. Why would we even have to write it down? Like, we'll write it down just to be sure.
There's this so Egypt is kind of nice because we can...
Yeah.
We found the Rosetta Stone and we could translate hieroglyphics.
Yes.
Like, until then, it was just, you know, gibberish.
Yeah.
Forgotten. Mm-hmm. And there are still languages, I mean, like that. I think most prominently, the Indus Valley, where I think like India, Pakistan kind of are, had this Indus Valley civilization, which I think is like kind of where the Hindu tradition comes from.
Okay.
But there's the Indus Valley script, and it's like this language that we know was used because it's referenced in other Indian languages, and but the most we've ever found of it is like 8 characters in series, and there's not a lot of characters altogether, but everyone talks about it as if it was something that, like, you know, had a lot to say.
So
like
the only record we had of this language is 8 characters?
Yeah, so either it's like some hyper efficient language that like conveys like terabytes of information in every character.
Yeah, it could be. It's probably not, but you know, you can't rule it out at this point.
We'll never know.
We'll never know until we develop a time machine and go back in time.
And then calendars will be handy.
Yeah. So that's really the only practical use there is for time travel.
So does that mean just because it requires time travel, we'll say requires a calendar, that time travel is a form of solipsism?
I have no idea how you made that leap, but I think that it would be very silly to start traveling through time without a good understanding of what you think happened and recorded I mean, how useful would oral history be in a time travel situation? It's like, oh, I kind of remember this guy telling me that there was a dragon here around now.
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as we know, dragons are extinct, so that's like a great example of how you could use oral history to find a dragon, dude. And like,
yeah, but like you would want to use like known other methods. So all a calendar is our way of recording past events, but there are other forms of calendars, like geographical calendars. You can make approximations of previous landmass presence and stuff like that by essentially reading the lines of the calendar. Like,
are you talking about Pangea?
No, I'm talking about like go to the Grand Canyon and bring a geologist and it will blow your mind, because they're like, okay, you can literally see back through time. This is a calendar of sorts. We're able to ascertain information about certain aspects of what it was like here a long time ago. So, you'd want to have that kind of information so you didn't like get into your time machine, go back like 8,000 years and there's like a mountain right where you are. And you're just like,
that reminds me of in the petrified forest then, trees that had fallen in a forest like hundreds of millions of years ago, you are effectively, hearing about at least.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. I hate petrified forests. Just give it up already, dude. Quit hanging on and wasting space. That's what I say.
Yeah, let's burn it down.
You can't, though. That's the problem.
Dang.
You can't burn down a petrified forest.
Well, how do you deforest then?
I don't know, but we're working on it. We got our best men working on it.
We will develop the technology.
We will develop the technology. Yeah.
According on some schedule tied to a calendar.
Right. Well, I mean, like I said, time is good for manufacturing. It's a good idea. I mean, you want your employees to do a certain amount of actions in a day, and you want to maximize the number of actions that they perform for the profit that you receive.
Right.
So having strict, basically action paths associated with rates is a fantastic way to do it.
Action paths?
Action paths, baby. That's manufacturing engineering.
I like that. You can write that down.
Write that down.
It's a fake band name for sure.
Action paths? That's a good one. Yeah, we haven't plugged fakebandnames.com in a while.
We haven't.
It still doesn't exist. That's probably why.
Right.
Yeah.
And while we are also talking about action paths, would you like to discuss maybe the action paths necessary to get this beautiful hunk of wood and these rotating spikes into our presence?
Consumers' hands? I think that you just got to hold on and hope that one day in the near future we have them online, because we will. I'm working on it. So we got this one piece of wood from someone up in Sholo, and I'm calling them every day.
Sholo? That sounds made up.
It is. It's not a real place.
Oh, well.
Yeah. You can go there, but it's not that real.
Is this like some confidentiality you're not able to disclose?
Site. Yeah, it's a black site.
I see.
For juniper logs. Yeah. They're actively converting petrified forests into consumable wood. They're depetrifying it. It's a weird.
So we have the technology.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not supposed to know about it. Are we gonna have to pull this episode?
We're definitely gonna have to redact all of this.
All right. Well, on that note, should we?
What's our time limit?
It's up to you guys. Currently 30 minutes.
Ooh.
For real?
Wow.
We went through a lot of material real fast.
Yeah.
You know what we should do as a test? We should get given a prompt, like fed a prompt that none of us knows about, and then just riff.
Well, we've done nothing to develop any sort of segments.
Yeah, our segues need work.
There's this one show that I listen to that has these relaxed fit episodes. Mm-hmm. So they cover stuff, but they make like no effort to like censor themselves or direct themselves in really any way.
Yeah.
But they had to like earn their way there. Their episodes were tight and focused, and they covered stuff until then.
So then maybe we should just go back and start talking about all the interesting things we glossed over, like dragons.
Tell me about dragons.
Dude, dragons are crazy. There was a big weird thing that happened a couple years ago. Discovery put all of this money into creating a fake dragon documentary where there was like this team of like Swedish researchers that had found dragon bones. It was like a dragon mummy. It wasn't even bones. There was like skin on it.
Like thawing in the permafrost?
Like thawing in an ancient Icelandic cave or something. And so they went out there, recovered it, and they were like, this is amazing. They like dissected it on camera and shit. And like fucking didn't tell anyone it was fake for like a while. I saw that live in like elementary school. I was like, this is the shit.
Weren't you told by elementary school that you can't believe everything you see on the internet?
No, I was indoctrinated to believe anything. And I still do. It doesn't take much to convince me.
How's that working out for you?
It's great. It's great. It's a very fluid way to be.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Any new information that comes in, it's part of my belief system now.
So, do you think dragons use some form of exotic propulsion?
Like out of their mouth. I mean, if you think about it, how much thrust does a dragon flame produce? It's probably a lot.
I'd guess like 7, maybe 8.
7 thrust units.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you think about it, so, like the A-10 Warthog, that thing is basically a gun that they built an airplane around. This thing has the momentum transfer from the bullets coming out of that thing are so massive that it provides a backward thrust that will stall the aircraft if it's fired for more than like 3 seconds. So they always have to like gain a bunch of airspeed on a big dive and then only burst it for a couple of seconds or it will literally stop their plane. So I wonder if it was the same with dragons. If they were like, they had to like get into a big dive and like, rah!
Well, that's probably how they do their landing, right? Isn't like
vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, dude.
Isn't some
It's genius.
SpaceX thing a dragon?
It's called the Dragon. Yeah, the Dragon capsule. Mm. It's the manned capsule that they sent up.
Wait, so the Dragon doesn't even breathe fire then?
So it did though. So early iterants of the Dragon capsule had small, I think they were Super Draco solid state, or no, they weren't solid state thrusters. And the thing, rather than landing on
like
parachutes,
solid state hydrogen?
No, not solid state hydrogen. That's not a thing.
Rocket fuel is hydrogen.
It's not solid state though.
Well, that's what I thought.
No, a solid state rocket is just like solid state. It's like fireworks are solid state propulsion.
Okay.
So what that means is that once you start them, they go the whole way and you can't stop them. Mm-hmm. But okay, so the Dragon capsule would actually come down on the parachute, but those things still land super hard. That's why they have to do water landings. So at the last second, like thrusters would shoot out of the bottom of it and like stop it, and it would hover for a second and then like land that last second. So that's probably why they named it that.
It's a good thing water's pretty soft.
Water is soft, generally. Sometimes it's really hard, though.
Another thing when we were talking about, because we did talk about the Grand Canyon, which is also sponsoring this episode, actually.
Yes, sponsored by the Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. Go there. It's deep.
I mean, this is the Grand Canyon state, so...
Yeah, which is weird, because the Grand Canyon goes through, like, a bunch of other states, and we were just like, this is our state.
No, it doesn't.
Grand Canyon
The Colorado River does, but, like...
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Well, the Colorado River made the Grand Canyon.
Yes, that I knew.
So there's another like way that you measure time, right? In like ice sheets, drilling core samples and stuff. Yeah. And funnily enough, that's done by geologists as well.
Yeah.
Which just seems wrong, right? I mean, like you just think like geo means rock, right? And then like that's not rock, but
maybe you know what? No, you know who does that? Cryologists. That's what they
probably
would call themselves.
A thing, huh?
Mm-hmm. Mm. Or geologists, moonlight as cryologists.
What do you moonlight as?
Fucking, I wish I was a cryologist just for the name. I'm considering now dropping everything I've done just to become a cryologist.
What if you made novotropes out of ice and like spun them in like Norwegian hotels and stuff made of ice?
Specifically in sub-freezing temperatures?
Yeah, well, I mean, where else would you spin it? Not Coachella.
You could for a very brief amount of time.
One glorious moment.
Just of spitting ice. Yeah, no, that's probably not.
It would be like melting and like whipping drops out. Like
it could work. I am no cryologist, as we have established.
Right.
Yet, until I go to Cryology U and get that juicy degree.
That's probably up there with the Inuit people and their 22 words for snow.
Mm-hmm. I bet that's the first thing they teach you.
I bet there's a lot of words for ice or snow that they don't even use anymore because of like
global warming. Mm-hmm. And then it turns into an oral history and then it dies.
Rip.
Unless they inscribe it in ice that they send to Norway.
Right.
So
and
it can
lock
stay
up
ice.
Somewhere where it never melts.
Okay, so now I have a question. Did like Inuit people have written history? Because like what would they write on? Like way back
I don't
in
think
the day,
so.
like
I mean,
early
like
Holocene era, like they didn't have rocks. It's just snow, right?
Well,
like caves.
Writing didn't come to every people like at the same time, or if at all.
Right. So they were only oral traditions because they didn't have access to the substrate to then convert to.
Like the Maasai people that I mentioned earlier, they don't have a written language. Like I met a dude working on like a dictionary for their language,
really?
An English to Ma dictionary, because
like the first one.
Yeah, and the and the school, like Swahili was adopted as like, I mean, Kenya's language. I mean, English was already pretty prevalent because of like colonialism.
Yeah.
And then Swahili, which was kind of like common from before that with like traders on the coast or whatever, became the other language because there's like 40 different tribes and languages in Kenya.
Right. So Swahili and English are like the intermediary languages.
Kids there know 3 languages by the time they're 10, and then they're told, forget the one that you learned first, and like just do this stuff.
Yeah. Why are they told to forget the one they learned first? You can hold 3 languages in your head.
Well, yeah, but I think there's kind of some
late stage colonialism still going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, it's called neocolonialism, and it's propagated by neoliberals generally. But yeah, it's like I think as liberalism kind of takes root in places, it champions the calendar history and a sort of solipsism.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, what are you gonna do? Go back in time and give the British a little more plague?
Well, I think a good idea is instead of, burning all your calendars, buy that one from our friends over at Cul-De-Sac, because they're our friends and they also sponsor this episode.
Yeah, they don't know yet.
Right. But their calendar, I feel like just putting that 0, like 12,000 years ago, is a little humbling in some ways.
Absolutely. It's also heresy, and the Catholic Church will kill you if you buy it. So please don't do that.
I don't know if the Catholic Church is, still in the habit of doing it. They probably have some like neo-imperialism that's like closer to the Russian New Generation warfare.
So they'll poison you with like mercury stuff, like crazy nuclear poisons.
Yeah, or just like send you memes.
Nah, bro. They'll probably just send a demon your way. Weaponized demon tech,
Demons
bro?
are memes, dude.
Do you think that that's a thing? Okay, let's assume that like demons, like exorcisms, angels, all that shit's real. Could you like actively harness that power and like become like an anti?
In that case, I think the afterlife, as we've established, could be observed through the electrical impulses in people's brains, right? So a demon would be, if you're like coming back as a demon, then you would just be, I feel like, giving people a bad time. Your memory would be giving people a bad time.
That's assuming that demons are like transformed human souls. I mean, demons could be
aren't they? I mean, I think that is like kind of canon. Like lost souls go to Lucifer, and he's like, "Yo,
and the
let's
really naughty ones get turned into demons." I thought the demons were like the angels that followed Lucifer, because he took a bunch of homies with him. They were like, dude, you got the right idea. Like, let's GTFO. Let's overthrow the old man. And then they went down to the bad place, and then they turned into demons. And then Lucifer was just like the big man on the throne.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, it depends on it. Like, if Dante is to believe, for instance, then there's like 7 layers of hell, and the deepest one is actually frozen over.
Interesting. Is that just like a low-key joke, or it's so hot it's cold? That doesn't make sense.
I mean, I forget about like the details of it, but
yeah, that means we can make them up.
Well, I forget who exactly is in that circle, but it's like, I think it's like traders or something.
Yeah, the tax man is down at the lowest one, dude, for sure. And
then the tax man subscribes to calendars.
The ninth
treachery.
Was treachery. So yeah, the tax man. You were right.
The tax man is treacherous.
Satan, Judas, Brutus, Cassius in there.
Brutus et tu, Brute.
Is it that Brutus?
Probably.
Like the Caesar guy?
How many other Brutuses do you know?
Yeah, but I feel like this was written before Caesar was assassinated.
No, this was written in like the 1200s or something, and Caesar was like way earlier. Pretty sure it was BC. Caesar was BC. Caesar was like 400 BC.
How would you know that unless you subscribed to
because
a calendar?
The Romans used calendars and amphitheaters, and that's what allowed them to do. I do, but I prefer to use the Holocene calendar because it keeps me humble.
But you are at the same time begrudgingly Gregorian
and begrudgingly globalist.
Yeah, That was another thing that we came to recently.
Yeah, fake band name.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a lot of sense. What do you think about globalism?
Well, it's happened.
If you could sum it up in one sentence.
Can't
do it.
One sentence? I can do it in one word. It's just here, now.
We're receding from it. That's for sure. There's a big trend that's anti-globalist.
Yeah, at the same time,
because globalism has risks.
Surrounding our world with a network of satellites that give us all Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So, probably not.
So, we're definitely like globalists in a communications aspect. I'm talking about like governmentally globalist.
Oh,
I'm talking about like Supreme Chancellor of Earth, baby.
I think, there is already a global government. It's the United Nations, and is
stuck at their jobs
because they lack authority.
Yeah, they lack teeth.
I had a thought, like, all of these different parliaments that have like an upper house that's relatively. Oh, that's a spill.
That was very symbolic of the upper parliamentary houses, wouldn't it be?
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, it's actually a rule that on the floor of the Senate, the only liquids you're allowed to have are water and milk.
Oh, I was gonna say the blood of the enemy.
No, just milk and water.
Okay.
Milk because of ulcer prevention, I guess.
That's interesting.
Shout out to Wes.
Shout out to Wes, our tech and paper towel acquisition agent.
I mean, paper towels are technology.
That's a good point.
It's just general tech.
Just cleaning tech? How would you categorize paper towels as a technology?
I think sanitation is a very important technology.
You're right.
Like soap and then paper towels.
Yeah.
I mean, papyrus towels. Is this a scroll?
You just blew my whole mind, dude. Paper towels are just modern day scrolls. We should be using them more. I've just been wasting them on cat puke like an idiot. Little did I know I held a vast information reservoir at my fingertips. Wow. Well, we'll get right on that. We'll get more scrolls going. And
back to hieroglyphs. I'm pretty sure of the, few symbols that they had, cats were probably one of them, right? Like they were into those.
It was like the first picture. The first picture we drew was boobs and dick. And then the third picture was a cat. That's known.
That tracks, yeah.
And then it was like buffalo and antelope and spears and like hunting rituals and gods.
Right.
But it was boobs,
Apollo.
Dick, cat. Yeah.
So you saw Tenet yesterday.
I did see Tenet.
Yeah.
There are people in this room who haven't seen Tenet.
There are.
Yeah.
Can you just explain to me in not movie terms why a explosion inverted in time would freeze
that was weird
in the blast radius?
Yeah. An inverted time bomb. Oh, by the way, if you think about it, I walked out of there shaking my head because I'm blanking. What's the director's name?
Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan based the entire plot around a pun. Time bomb. The entire movie is based around that. And
how
you
is
can fight
that
me if you want to argue about it.
How is that a pun?
A time bomb? A time bomb is a bomb that uses a timer to count down until it explodes. What was the main plot device of the entire movie?
A time bomb?
That was a pun on that.
Why is it a pun?
It was a bomb that reversed time.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's funny though.
Yeah, dude.
That's a fun word building a movie around.
Now I'm wondering if every single freaking Christopher Nolan film is based on pun. That would just be the coup de grace on every single one of his films because they're all amazing. I mean, Inception was like just an absolute mind cannon.
Well, and he's all about this time stuff.
It's all about time.
You think he believes in calendars?
I have to ask him.
He seems pretty disrespectful to calendars.
Yeah, dude.
Like Interstellar too. That's a time one.
Yeah, he's an anti-chronologist for sure. Somebody's gonna have to talk to him about it.
Are cryologists chronologists?
Cryologists are a form of chronologist. Geologists have to be a form of chronologist.
Are any ists a form of chronologist?
I would say you're hard pressed to find a category of ist that is not in some way a chronologist. Geometrists, maybe.
I would argue indigenous.
Only space. Indigenous,
which isn't a word, but
even then, history is going to be important.
Literally, oral history is going to be important, not calendar history.
Yeah, but oral history still uses time. They still you
not
understand the
incremental time.
concept. To some extent, I'm sure they do.
It's more like
It's
before,
implied.
after.
It's implicit incremental time, right? Like Zeus birthed Hera.
There's
There's a
understanding of what
chronology
happened
there.
before and after certain things. There's cause and effect, but there isn't like
Cause of an effect is
it
just
wasn't like
entropy in
200
action, baby.
years after like Kronos threw up Poseidon, he had like this horse baby.
Are you sure?
No.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I haven't been to an amphitheater recently that was
I mean, they
talking
might be
about Poseidon.
like 3 seasons later.
All of my
Hercules came.
mythology education comes from the Percy Jackson series.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's a pretty thorough education, though, as far as mythology
Have you
is.
fact checked it, or did you just believe it because it sounded?
I feel like people would have fact checked it. Like, you know, I rely on Wikipedia and anonymous information sources.
Yeah, they're the best kind because anybody can write stuff in there.
Yeah,
and so that's how you get the best information. Yeah, exactly.
I think so.
What else is there to say? I think we've covered it all.
Can you have conspiracy theories in oral history? Can you be like, what if Zeus isn't actually the son of Cronus?
Oh, shit. I don't know. I'm sure you can.
Probably not, though, because nobody else would repeat it. It'd be like, shut up. Nah, dude. Like, everyone knows Zeus was...
Let's look at a modern-day oral history that's going on right now. QAnon.
Yeah.
It's absolutely an oral history.
Yeah.
Because, and this is the way I've heard it described, and it's really interesting and kind of true. QAnon is a pick-your-own-adventure conspiracy theory. So it's basically people...
Like one of those Goosebumps books. It's like, turn to page like 56 if you want to rub the magic lamp.
Somebody will be like, I don't really buy Pizzagate, but I do buy that the moon is hollow. And that's why, like, the Soyuz, whatever. And it's like, they'll just go down these own pathways, and then everybody will end up with their own specific version of this.
So it's a cognitive cul-de-sac.
I guess.
Wow. So are we basically doing the same thing as QAnon, just creating an oral history?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff I tell on this podcast is not true.
So do you think QAnon are solipsists?
Yeah, big time. Mm. I think that solipsism is probably the primary sin of most Americans, at least half right now.
Knowing is like... Because, I mean, you'd say they like probably know they are ignorant in some level, but they...
No. I don't think so. I think
they don't need to know things so long as like Trump knows things and is around and is able to run the world.
Yeah, they have.
They're just delegating
they've outsourced their thought process.
Yeah,
and their decision making and their critical analysis to individuals that have no interest in their well-being.
And a solipsist couldn't outsource that by definition. They had to think that everything is of their own brain.
Right. I think that there's a duality. I think that they don't respect other people's sort of awareness and existence, but at the same time, they will readily outsource it to people who align with them morally and virtually.
And what does RESPECT mean to you?
I don't know. What is that? I can't spell.
Respect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the song?
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was
I've
someone.
never heard that.
Oh.
What's that from?
Wes? I don't know.
Wes, pull that up. Of course I've heard that.
Yeah.
I told you, I don't tell the truth a lot.
So what does respect mean to you?
I have no opinion.
On respect?
On respect.
You just don't practice?
I just don't practice respect.
Mm.
I'm strictly against the concept, in fact.
Self-respect?
No.
You don't practice?
No. I treat this body like a waste dump. It's terrible, the things I do to this body. Yeah. I should work on that.
Mm-hmm. You're pretty nocturnal these days.
I'm super nocturnal.
Is that working out for you?
Yeah. There's less interruptions.
I've thought more about naps are nice.
Naps are nice. I'm a big nap fan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need naps once I have a consistent sleep schedule, I've noticed.
So where's the line between like nap and like sleep? Is it just hitting REM?
Now we're asking the real questions.
Yeah.
I've hit REM before on a nap.
Let me ask you this, is it a matter of incremental time or is it a matter of body time? Like hitting REM versus like 30 minutes, right?
Right, but what does hitting REM mean? It's just part of a cycle. you come in and out of REM, and then so you can just define your time units as 1 to 2 in and outs of REM.
Right, which is roughly how long, probably?
I think it's like every 30 minutes.
How often is REM?
Give or take 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
You only get like 3 hours of REM sleep over the course of your 8 hours or so.
Mm-hmm.
I took about a 30-minute nap like right before this, and I think it did wonders for my general cognition.
I think it may have done a little bit for your general cognition.
You don't think my general cognition is wondrous? I'm sorry, Mr. Einstein.
Yeah, well, I slept for 12 hours right before this.
Back to John von Neumann, somebody that we brought up earlier that I did. He was also the only student of Einstein's that Einstein was intimidated by.
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah.
And he was like, you know what? I got this idea. It's called the probe, and you're all going to love it. You guys don't understand it, but your kids are going to love it. And now von Neumann's probe is like the main feature in space exploration, like projection.
Is this real?
The von Neumann probe.
Oh.
That's what he's most known for.
I thought he was known for the von Neumann architecture that's at the heart of every computer today.
Oh, well, I'm not a computer scientist, so I would have no idea.
You're just a space rod expert or scientist?
Space rod?
Yeah.
What's a space rod?
I don't know. The von Neumann probe?
I guess it's like a hot rod for space. A von Neumann probe is a self-replicating, artificial intelligence-driven spacecraft.
Oh.
So the idea is you send a bunch out to a bunch of different stars. They go out, they collect resources, they do asteroid mining, they do ore refining, they do 3D printing and manufacturing all autonomously, make more of themselves, and then do it again. So
they're probably called that because they use the von Neumann architecture.
It's an interesting idea. I also think that he thought of the idea.
He could have. He was a smart guy. He also believed in he was a big advocate for mutually assured destruction.
Really?
Mm-hmm. He was like, if somebody's going to have nukes, everybody's going to have nukes.
Yeah, got it. Thank
He
God
thought so.
for von Neumann. Yeah, R.I.P. But he ain't dead yet, totally.
Not dead.
Because we talking about him,
Mm-hmm.
thinking about him, dreaming about him.
He's got things named after him.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to name my first kid von Neumann. Maybe my second
Von
kid.
Neumann Gieber?
Yeah.
People call him Von for short.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cool name.
It's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Vonnie and Clyde. That'll be their names. Yeah. All right. I think we've hit our time limit here.
Okay.
So, anything you want to say to wrap it up? Well said.
Yeah.
Next time, we'll do something different.
And say something different.
Maybe a couple of things.
That's a guarantee.
That is, you can take that to the bank. All right.
But on like Friday.
Yeah.
Not tomorrow.
At 4:55 p.m. on a Friday, take it to the bank.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Later.